Over the last over 120 days, I've been working on building a private equity company from scratch, and I've learned so much, gotten so deep, and there's still a lot more to be done and for me to do. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of what I've learned, what I'm working on, what it actually looks like, what the hell is even private equity. A lot of people don't understand what it is. And I'm going to describe what some of the strategies are that I'm actually enacting and how they play out and how they make me money.
People ask all the time, what does our private equity firm actually do, though?
They could do a number of different things, but I'll describe what we're focusing on in particular. It's a strategy called roll-ups or industry roll-ups. And it's kind of like this, right? I describe it as something similar to it's like a cheeseburger, right? If you were to go buy a cheeseburger from McDonald's today, it makes a lot of sense for you to hand them a certain amount of money for a cheeseburger. But if instead that cheeseburger was broken into all of its individual parts, right? You had a bun here, tomato, piece of lettuce, piece of cheese, and a burger. Would you pay much money for each of those individual pieces that don't actually function well on their own? You probably wouldn't, but you would pay a lot more money if someone did the work of, going and finding each of those parts, putting them together in a nice fluid form that actually came together as a cheeseburger and function as something you would actually want to eat. So a private equity roll-up is that same thing, but each piece of the cheeseburger is just an individual company that does all right on its own, right? Like a bun tastes good, piece of cheese tastes good on its own, but it's not that great. It's not as good as a cheeseburger. So you go out and you find a bunch of companies that together make something really great. You do the work of buying them, organizing them together, putting them together, and getting them ready to function as one piece. And then when you go to sell it, you actually sell it to someone who wants that cheeseburger. Now, the reason this works is when you go to buy a bun, another bun, piece of cheese, burger, lettuce, and tomato, you pay way less for each of those parts than you would for the cheeseburger on its own. So you take some money, maybe some other people's money in this case, go buy each of these parts, put them together, but then you split the money with whoever gave you the money when you sell the cheeseburger as a whole and get a lot more money for the whole thing together. That's basically how a roll-up works.
But if I was going to do this, what industry should I buy companies in?
So whenever you're doing a roll-up, you have to actually pick the industry that you're going to focus on for your roll-up. If you decide, oh, I'll just buy any good company I can find, you're going to be too unfocused and you're not going to really have a good strategy when it comes to finding these companies, because if anything looks like a goal, nothing is a goal, right? So the biggest thing that you want to focus on whenever you're doing an industry roll-up is, in my opinion, industries that are, recession resistant, that are good and profitable, and that you can wrap your head around and that you understand. Most importantly, something that you either understand well or have experience in, or know someone that wants to work with you that has experience in. So in my case, I chose to focus on home services because I knew people in the space that were doing really well. I understood it decently well, felt like I could learn it well. And it's just a good, stable, boring business type that does well no matter what's happening in the market, which reduces our risk. So examples of home services, because I always say home services and people are like, what does that mean? What are those? Home services, all that is you have a problem in your home, someone comes in and solves it. So if your AC system goes out, an HVAC company comes and fixes it. If you have a flood in your house, a plumbing company comes and fixes your plumbing, things like that. Landscaping, all these different examples are actually pretty good for this type of industry roll-up. So we're looking specifically in the ones that are skilled trades like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, ones that are just generally profitable and do well, because this reduces our risk, like I said. So whenever you pick this, I would focus on all those categories to make sure that you're picking the right industry roll-up for you in particular. So the other thing that people always ask me is, how do you buy these businesses? And no, I don't just have millions and millions and millions of dollars laying around to go spend millions on buying businesses. And that's not really how private equity companies do it. I mentioned earlier in the video about, potentially going and getting someone else's money to do this. So usually what we do in private equity is we either raise this money from private investors or from the bank or from something like that. So you're using other people's money to go and buy these businesses. Now, that doesn't mean you can't put your own money in if you want to invest your own money. Actually, that's usually a good idea as long as you feel confident about it, because you can make a good return on your money. but you make money either way, and I'll get into that in a bit. But how you buy these businesses is usually, if you're just starting out in this, the best way to do it is actually to go find the deal first. So I'll give you an example. I went out and I was looking at, a website called bizbuysell.com. Biz Buy Sell, it's just a kind of a marketplace, like an eBay for businesses that are for sale. So I was looking in my local area, and eventually I found an HVAC company that was for sale that was a pretty good deal. It was listed for a pretty good deal. That being said, we still thought we might be able to get the price down a little bit, but it was listed for a pretty reasonable price, and it had a good team in place that was going to be staying in place even if the owner left. So I got in contact with the business broker that was representing this business, and I actually talked to them and, figured out that it was a pretty good fit for us. So what you do from there is you go and get the business under a letter of intent. So letter of intent just means these are the terms and the price that I'm going to buy your business. It's a contract, but it's not something that holds you to anything. But it says, I'm going to buy your business for this much money, and this is how it's going to work, right? Theoretically. But then you get into a period of exclusivity with the seller. So when they sign that letter of intent, they can't go get offers from other buyers and talk to other buyers. That means that you have that kind of locked down and that they've agreed they want to work with you. So when you have that letter of intent, you can go take this to someone with the money to spend on a deal like this. And as long as it's a good, profitable deal and you can explain very clearly how you're going to make money in the long term from doing this deal and going through whatever plan you have after, whether it be a roll up or whatever, then that person might invest into the deal. And one thing that I had a misconception about when I first got into this is I thought that you just went and raised all this money and then invested into a bunch of different deals. And it actually usually works the opposite when you're getting started out. And it's because you go get the leverage of being under contract with this business and having an exclusive opportunity and just having an actual deal that you can talk about and show. That leverage is what creates the ability to get capital from someone who has the money, whether that be a bank, whether that be the Small Business Administration, whether that be a private investor. All these are good options as long as you can make it pencil out. So I want to talk about those three options as well. So the first one that we talked about is the banks. As long as interest rates are reasonable, if you go and you get money from the bank, you might be able to get a loan that allows you to buy a business and then for the cash flow of the business to actually pay for itself over the term of the loan. So that's option number one. Option number two is kind of the same thing, but through a special program called the Small Business Administration. Now, this is a government-backed program that a lot of banks are a part of, where you get a loan from the bank through the SBA, and it's backed by the SBA. And they actually allow you to go buy a business and put 10% down, almost like a mortgage on a house, and then spread the rest of the 90% of that business purchase over the next 10 years with some interest. So you pay usually a fairly high amount of interest right now, somewhere about 11% or so, but you have 10 years for the business's cash flow to actually pay for itself, so you decrease your risk. Now, the important thing when doing this is that you actually have a background, or that someone you are working with has a background where they actually know how to operate and grow that business. So in our case, the deal we're looking at right now in HVAC, we actually have some operating partners that have been in HVAC for about 5 years and have their own company doing really, really well that would be merging with us to help us run this company. I'm by no means an HVAC expert. If you ask me to fix your AC, I'd be lost. But I understand business, I understand how sales work, how marketing works, and just how to streamline operations. And I found good operating partners that can take care of the rest. So this is what I would recommend if you're getting into something like this. So the third option that I mentioned is private money lending, right? This is when you actually go to individuals with money and they invest their money directly into the deal. Now, this could be a lot of different examples of people. One is, high net worth individuals. You might have friends, family, friends of friends, or acquaintances, someone you met in school 10 years ago that got really rich. You might have individuals that just have a lot of money and want to get them into deals like this because you can explain with, a reasonable ability to convey all the details that this deal is going to make them much more money than they put into it. So that's the first place you can look. But where I've chosen to look more so is actually a higher level of individual markets. There are a lot of other private equity funds. If you're emerging, if you're just starting out like I am, there are more established funds that have been doing this for a long time. And they actually, believe it or not, they prefer not to do all the work that it takes to find these deals, to negotiate them, to do all the due diligence behind it. They prefer to use someone like me, almost like an intern, to go find all their deals, and they'll pay me and cut me into the deal, and they'll fund the whole thing with all the money they've raised from their investors for me to go out and find it, negotiate it, and bring it all together. Now, the really cool thing about that is this is kind of like a closed club. It's really hard to get into this and to just raise money from an investor if you haven't actually done these types of deals before. So if you go out and you find one of these funds, or you find someone like an independent sponsor that just helps funds and helps as an advisor, or a family office of some kind that is willing to take a chance on you, then you might actually be able to get into it and break that barrier of the closed club just by doing a lot of the work and taking much less of the money that comes out of it the first time around, and bring it all together for someone who wants to do these deals. So another thing I get asked all the time is, how do you actually find these deals? How do you find business owners that want to sell their business to you? And there's really 4 core ways that I do it. And I did not by any means make this up, but I'm gonna use Alex Hormozy's Core 4 kind of framework to describe some of the ways that I've actually seen success in doing this. And I don't use all of these, but I use most of these. So the core 4, as he puts them, are really cold outreach, warm outreach, ads, and content. So I'll kind of explain each of those briefly. Cold outreach, all this means is reaching out to someone that you don't know yet and doesn't know you. Warm outreach is the opposite. It's reaching out to someone that already knows you. Running ads is, Facebook ads, Google ads. There's a bunch of different places to put ads out, whether it be online or sending someone a mailer or whatever. You can run some kind of ad and find people that way. Or you could do content. So the only one I really don't do right now is this. I do content like what you're seeing right now, where I make videos talking about this. I make videos every day about this. And believe it or not, a lot of the opportunities that I've found have actually come from the content, maybe more than any other strategy. So I'd talk about that one first. When I make content, the key is that I'm not making it trying to sell you on something. I'm not trying to say, hey, you should invest with me, or you should do this. That's actually not even legal for me to say you should invest with me. There's all kinds of regulations around that, right? But when I'm making content, I'm just trying to show what I'm doing and kind of like peel back the curtain a little bit and give a little bit of detail about how it all works. And people that, whether they be a business owner that wants to sell to me, or someone that wants to invest, or just someone that wants to help me with the fund somehow, all the time, almost every day, see my content, message me, email me, call me, get in contact with me somehow. And they're just like, hey, I've been watching your content for a little while, or I've been following your journey, I've been doing this, and I just think it's cool what you're doing, and I wanted to reach out because of this, or this, or this. And that's the power of making good content that reaches the people specifically that you're trying to reach. But these are fantastic as well, and I'm not discounting these even in the slightest. What I would actually recommend, especially if you're limited on time or money, is I would do warm outreach first. The thing about content is it takes a lot of time. And to be honest, I spend a decent amount of time on this because I know it works. The thing about cold outreach is it honestly takes either a ridiculous amount of time or a lot of money, or maybe a little bit of both. And you might not have money getting started out. Warm outreach, you could text or call or email your friends, your family, your coworkers, past bosses, people in your network, people you went to school with. You could just reach out and let them know a little bit about what you're doing. And what I recommend for this is you don't want to just reach out and say like, hey, do you have a business you want to sell me? Or do you want to invest in my fund? You want to say, hey, I'm working on this thing. I'm looking for people to help. Do you know anyone who might want to talk to me about something like this? Like, do you know anyone who's working on something like this, or you think that it would be good for me to talk to? And then it's not putting the pressure on them to feel like they're getting sold to by you. It just actually puts them in a position to want to help you. Believe it or not, people want to help people. Good people want to help people. At least that's what I've found is there's a lot of people in my network that kind of started coming out of the woodworks and seeing this and just wanting to help because they saw that I was trying to do something big. And when I reached out to ones that I thought were uniquely suited to be able to maybe introduce me to this person or teach me something about what I'm doing, they were very, very willing to help as long as I was not putting pressure on them and was just asking them for advice or an introduction. So I really recommend this one as well. Now, cold outreach is huge as well. We actually found our first big break through cold outreach. With us in particular, the thing that we've found has been best is just sending a lot of emails every day. So we actually pay for a software, and that's why I said, if you don't have money to start, this one might be a little bit tough, but you could literally go old school and just start writing letters. But with cold outreach, I'll give you an example of what we did. We actually signed up for a software called Resquared, and they're not an affiliate of mine. I don't make money if I close some deal with them or something, but I do really recommend using them because it's been great for us. So we signed up for this, and what it does is, let's say you want to buy HVAC companies like I'm trying to do, and you want to do it in your particular area. You go into the software and you literally put like I'm in Orlando, Florida. You literally put Orlando as a filter, and then you put HVAC as a filter, and then it literally does a search where it'll tell you, and I happen to know the number, it'll be like, listen, there's over, I think it's 1,300 HVAC companies in Orlando. Here's all their names, here's their Google pages, Yelp pages, social media, website, contact information, all that. So you could just go through manually, you could call the ones you like, do something like that, but it also has a feature programmed into it where you set up like an email with a standard template of messaging, and it just plugs in what the business's name or the business's area, whatever you want it to do. And then what I do personally is we just say, hey, we keep it very general, very light. We say, hey, I saw you. I might be interested in investing in your company. It looks like one that I've had success with before, or that I have this knowledge in, or that I have this interest in, whatever feels natural for you. And I'd like to talk about it if you're open to it. And the thing that happens is 99.9% of these businesses, not actually that many, but most of them are never going to even check out your email, read it, respond, or anything like that. But for the very few that you happen to catch on the right day at the right time, well, I don't know, Aquarius is in moon, whatever the fuck, I don't understand all that stuff. If you catch them at the right time, on the right place, and the right day and time, then they might just be receptive to your message and they might want to talk a little bit more about it. And that's where you form a relationship. You start talking to them about what you're doing and just being very open with the strategy of what you're trying to do. And believe it or not, the prospect of getting involved in one of these roll-ups, if you can figure out how to explain it simply and explain how they would make money if they keep a small portion of their company while you're doing this, and how that small portion that they keep might become worth way more if they just stick with you through your plan, and why you're uniquely suited to be able to do this for them, that tends to be an attractive proposition to the right business owner. So that's been our approach. We peel back the curtain. We're like, hey, we're looking to do this. You want to do it with us? No? Okay, on to the next. Or we just try to build the relationship and just maybe help them out with other things in their business. So I really recommend all of these strategies. I mentioned one that I found here. I mentioned, the one that we found here that was our first big break was literally just someone that got our email, saw it, and within 10 minutes of receiving it, just called me up right off of the email with my phone number that I put on there. And then we had met by like a week from then. We met a couple more times in town here in person, talked a little bit about it, and now we're in business with them, and it's been fantastic. Warm outreach, I've had countless examples of me reaching out to someone, telling them a little bit about what I'm doing, or even just running into them and having a conversation. Then they give me a referral of some kind and say, hey, my buddy was actually looking to sell his business, or my uncle was, or whatever, and it all works. So, in summary, I would recommend doing whichever one makes most sense for you, is most natural for you, or builds upon strengths or relationships or things you already have in place. For me, I felt great about this. I've been doing it for a while. I had a little bit of capital saved up from another business to be able to put into this, and I had a little bit of a network that I felt like I could reach out to. But you can start with any of these. Ads, I'll probably do when we have a little bit more traction going. We have cash flow coming from the first deal that can support this, because I'm trying to bootstrap this for the most part as much as possible. And this is more expensive than this. But altogether, that's some of the ways that I use to find deals. And the more you do some of these every single day, this is not something you just start up one day and do a couple times and you get results. I do this stuff literally every single day. This runs on autopilot for me every single day, sending 50 emails. I post every single day. I do this as often as I possibly can, usually multiple times a day. Whenever I think about something, so I get reminded of someone I know, someone that might know someone, or whatever. I'm literally doing this constantly. And that's how you generate enough opportunities to make this happen. Or if you're rich as fuck, you can just run a bunch of ads, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. But the thing is, because you have to find these deals to really spark things off and get things running in the first place, start here. That's how you would get involved in this. That's how we got involved in this and how we actually got some traction. And if you're trying to get started in private equity, if you're trying to sell a business, buy a business, if you're trying to become an investor of something like this, or get involved in this in any form or fashion, find more information in the link in my description. Get in touch with me if you think it makes sense. Check out our website, check out more about our strategy, our leadership team, and everything that we're looking to do. And I would love to talk to you then. See you on the next one.